Well, hello everybody. This is Louise Edington, the Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology, and I'm here with my weirdly cosmic podcast for the new moon, the Virgo new moon that is coming up on August the 27th, 2022. I'm actually recording this on August the 11th, and I'll look a little bit at the astrological changes that happen between today's full moon and the new moon on August the 27th. But before we go and look at that chart, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to my channel, maybe give the video a thumbs up and leave me a comment. I do respond to comments. I love to get them. And that's if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening where you like to listen to your podcasts, then I would also invite you to go to iTunes and leave my podcast a review, hopefully 5-star. But the more reviews I get, the more the algorithms work, and the everything kind of goes up, and so do comments and subscribes and things like that. They all help the algorithms. So the the new moon that's coming up on August the 27th will be at 2:17 a.m. Mountain Time. We'll look at the chart in a minute, but it's a Virgo new moon, and I pulled 3 cards for this Virgo new moon, and I actually used a new deck that I've become rather fond of very quickly, and it's the Tarot of Dreams. Okay, this is by Lee Burston, and I just love the artwork in this. I actually found the deck through watching Revealing Light Tarot on YouTube, so give her a little check out as well. She's a fabulous tarot reader. And this deck is unusual, in that it has 1 extra card. And I pulled 3 cards for this new moon, and I actually pulled the extra card. And the extra card is the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Okay, the Merkaba, that brings all of things in together. Now, there's no interpretation for this card in the book, so I'm going to interpret what this means in this respect. For me personally, this is the whole of life, the totality of life. This is the tree of life. This is what we are in as humans in our existence on this earth. Now, Virgo is very much about becoming whole as well, but there's more to this, and I'm going to come back to that when we look at the astrology charts. But this is a reminder that we're kind of in this bigger picture, to my mind. So that's the first card I pulled. The second card I pulled is the Page of Cups, which is a lovely card because that's kind of a new emotional start, kind of fresh start, very new moony. But this is about cups. This is about relationships, love, and emotion. So there's a new start coming, definitely, under this energy, even though we still appear to be in kind of crazy chaos out there in the world. And then the third card I pulled, very pleased to see this, Justice is coming, accountability, balance. I did actually like what she said in this, or he, whichever it is, said in this book, for the brief description, that this is a reminder that there must be absolutes of right and wrong if life is to have meaning. And I think we're realizing that, we'd kind of come into this time where there were no absolutes. And I think we're moving back into it, of what's right, what's wrong. So we're heading that way anyway. So let's have a look at the astrology of these things. And I'll tell you why I want to come back to this, this chart, okay, or this card. So the Virgo new moon is on August the 27th. As I said, it's at 2:17 a.m. Mountain Time, which is 1:17 a.m. Pacific, 4:17 Eastern, and 9:17 a.m. in the UK. So it's going to be on the 27th for everybody. Okay, so it's a 9-day, which is the last number, a number of completion. We're still in a 6th year, so still the rise of the divine feminine, as I said. And we're still in August, which is the 8 months, and the 8 is the number of strength and courage and balance and real kind of justice in a way. And put that all together, so we have 9. I did add this up before, but I've forgotten what. So 9 and 6 is 15, and 8, 23. So it's actually a 23 universal day, which makes a 5. And that's definitely a number of change. And since this is a Virgo new moon, a mutable sign, unsurprisingly, change is coming. So this new moon, if you can see some things I've highlighted on this chart, is at 4 degrees Virgo. The sun and moon are conjunct. It's in an almost exact by 2 minutes square to Mars in Gemini, which is really adding some spice into this new moon energy. But the other thing I find quite astounding is that we have Pholus here, which is one of the centaurs. I've started working with the centaurs because they are, in my opinion, and the opinion of others who work with the centaurs, they are really kind of bringing in this change that we're experiencing. Those and the newly discovered dwarf planets. But Pholus is his basic succinct message is take the lid off it. So I'll talk about what all that means in a moment too, when we talk about the whole thing. A couple of other things I want to talk about, and I'll probably bring in some other things, but one in particular is that Ceres is at 15 Leo, which is the world point. And that means that's one of the cross-quarter degrees. When the sun hits the world point, it's at the cross-quarter. And we've just had that cross-quarter day. So Ceres is sitting right on one of the world points and is in an almost exact trine to Chiron. They're both at 15 degrees, which is a 6, and we're in a 6th year, bringing healing. Ceres is interestingly sandwiched between asteroid Lilith and Venus, almost exactly at the midpoint, not quite. 2 goddess, we've got 3 powerful goddess energies there, and I'll talk about what that means as well. I think this new moon is going to be quite a shake-up, but I also think there's huge potential for moving forward and actually kind of creating kind of a better world, really, and bringing this sense of balance and justice, which is the Libra card. Not just legal justice, but bringing things back into balance and harmony. But why did I go, oh, I picked this card, okay, the Tree of Life. I was suddenly like, back in, so this is a new moon at 4 Virgo, okay, and the opposite sign of that is Pisces. So back in September the 1st, 2020, 2 years, almost to the day from this new Virgo new moon that we've got coming up, we actually had a full moon at 10 Virgo, okay. That formed a Tree of Life configuration. And I noted this when we had this in the podcast way back then. I was like, I've never seen this configuration before. I've never heard anybody talking about this configuration in astrology. You know, if you look at this, it was pretty much all exact with these at 24, 25 degrees. Okay, I've added some extra bits in there. With this at 10 degrees, conjunct Nessus, which is another centaur, saying the buck stops here. But on that full moon, almost exactly 2 years ago, Ceres was at 4 degrees of Pisces, opposite the point of this new moon. Now, I'm going to do I think I'm going to have to do a masterclass on Ceres. I've done a presentation on Ceres a few times, and I kind of learn more about her over time. But it's my opinion that Ceres is a major, major factor in our collective evolution. And the fact that she is bringing this tree of life configuration back in on this new moon, almost 2 years to the day since that full moon, we're reaching some kind of fulfillment or some new beginning, I think, from something that began back in the fall of 2020 or the autumn of 2020. So I don't want to get too hung up on that, but just think about that. Think about what's happened to you, maybe look back at your Facebook memories over the last 2 years and say, what's shifted, what's changed? I think something, that kind of was released then, or something that began changing then in you is going to start, you're going to start taking action on it now. And collectively, we all are too. I actually should look back at the history, perhaps, of that day. So if you'd like me to do that really quickly, onthisday.com is the site I quickly use. So that was 2020, a year that will remain in infamy. And if I quickly look to the headlines for September, astronomers report possible signs of life on Venus after detecting phosphine in planet's atmosphere by telescope. Oh, wow. There was a big fire in California that became the largest recorded in state history. We may have beaten that now, but I'm not sure. Belarusian saw Lukashenko win 80% of the votes, causing, but unofficially lose. Oh, so he officially won votes and unofficially lost in the election, which sparked widespread protests in Belarus, in that area where we've got a lot of, trouble going on now. In the lead up to it, we had the highest ever temperature recorded in the Arctic Circle, 38 degrees centigrade, which was 100 Fahrenheit in Siberia. And Ceres, by the way, is very associated with climate change. Just a little side note, Trump had COVID as well back then, right after that full moon. So I'll let you kind of look back and think what's going on with all of that. All right, so that's just kind of, what came to me with that card. There's something coming back, and I want you all to kind of really think for yourselves what's coming back. I do think a lot of it might be to do with climate change, particularly with Ceres being, she was at the opposing point to this new moon, and now she's on this world axis. And I'll give my opinion about that when I come back and talk about this new moon. So let's quickly, first of all, look at the numbers. Number 4, at least. We're just going to look at number 4 today for the new moon being at 4 degrees and making these aspects to Mars at 4 degrees and Pholus at 4 degrees. Have we? Yeah, that's all the ones that were at 4. Nothing else was. So 4 is practicality, organization, service, patience, devotion, application, pragmatism, all very Virgoan words. So here we have a Virgo and new moon at 4 degrees. So even though I think this new moon could be quite discordant in some ways, I think we're really going to be invited to take a real practical approach to whatever comes up through all this, and we'll take a serious, disciplined, systemic, ordered approach to it, bringing things back into harmony and balance. And emotionally, this card tells me that we'll be ready for this. This is about building solid foundations. Okay, now 4 is a stabilizer number. So, you know, it can take undertake difficult or unpleasant tasks. The 4 is, so we'll be ready to really emotionally take on with conviction any unpleasant tasks that come our way, collectively and individually. 4 likes security, stability, home. Virgo likes stability, likes things to know where things are. It's not, you know, Virgo always gets this thing about being so neat and tidy. Every Virgo I've known is not that way, but they like to have some order in their mind. So just think of that, of bringing this practical solution to some things that perhaps started 2 years ago. Okay, so looking at the actual astrology itself, this square to Mars is moving into Gemini. Mars actually moves into Gemini. I should have looked at these dates up. But Mars moves into Gemini on August the 20th, so just a week before this. But Mars is going to be in Gemini until March the 25th, 2023, because he's going to have a retrograde in Gemini. I'll be talking more about that later, but you know, we're activating this Mars in Gemini, and Mars in Gemini is very quick thinking, very quick communication, very quick change. Gemini is a mutable sign as well, very kind of curious, fitting to one thing or another. Virgo kind of likes this practical, solid approach, but is also a mutable sign that likes change. But these are both in aspect to Pholus in Capricorn. The Virgo new moon is in a trine aspect to Pholus in Capricorn. Pholus taking the lid off things around our structures, our the structures we live under, the kind of the banking, the institutions, but also our own structures of our lives, whether we've got this job and this house, and you know, these are all the structures of life that we live under. It's commonly referred to as the patriarchy because we've been living under patriarchal conditions, but Capricorn isn't the patriarchy, but Capricorn is the structures that we create, the man-made laws, the man-made rules. Jupiter and Sagittarius tends to be connected more with natural law. Capricorn and Saturn is generally more connected with the man-made structures and man-made laws. So with this little triad coming at 4 degrees, we're trying to create stability from all this, but this is going to be difficult. We're going to face some challenges facing stability with all of this. The desire is for stability, but what's shaken up we'll have to deal with. And remember, I said the 4 has the ability to take these tasks on. Oh, goodness, excuse my dog. So, you know, it's quite a challenging triad, but it's also the one that can really take the task on, get to work, think, what do I need to be of service in? And I think this is going to be a lot to do with climate change and a lot to do with communication. Now, Mercury is the ruler of both the new moon, the Virgo new moon, and also where Mars is in Gemini. So this is a very mercurial new moon. And Mercury on this actual lunation has moved into Libra 2 days before the new moon. Mercury moves into Libra on August the 25th and is heading into the 3rd and final retrograde of the year, though he does actually turn retrograde in Capricorn just before the end of the year. But the last final full retrograde that will begin at 8 Libra. But on this new moon, Mercury has moved to 1 degree of Libra. And here we have the Justice card. Mercury in Libra likes justice. So whatever is brought up, and again, to, you know, find that balance between the rights and the wrongs and find that harmony and all that kind of thing that I talked about. So whatever is brought up moving into this new moon, we are going to have this big task of bringing the balance in, bringing people in, talking to them, mediating. Mercury in Libra is really the mediator, the diplomat. I think there's going to be a lot of bringing together in this new moon, which is really wonderful to my mind. Now, remember all this, the new moon in Virgo, square Mars, trying to foal us, is taking place at 4 Virgo, but Ceres was at 4 Pisces 2 years ago. So but this new moon is opposing that point of 4 Pisces, of where we reached this scary temperature in the Antarctic, and where we reached a peak. And it's becoming really clear now. People are actually starting to look up. No matter what you think of this new bill that's going through in the US government, it is the first bill to address anything with climate change in the USA. It may not be good enough. You may think it's all appalling. Doesn't matter. Energetically, it is the first bill to do anything towards climate change. I think people are starting to wake up. We've had this energy of the Uranus North Node Mars conjunction at 18 Taurus, very earthly sign, going, come on, wake up, people, wake up to what do you value. And incidentally, while we mention Uranus actually stations retrograde 3 days before this new moon. He's still at the 18-degree mark, and he's going back and going, what have we woken up to? What do we need to bring radical change to? So even though on the face of it, this new moon seems quite challenging because of the square to Mars, and because Pholus is taking the lid off things, whatever we get taken the lid off to, whatever comes in our faces, maybe more big fires or something, we've got a lot of Leo energy leading up to that. It's beginning to wake people up. All right, so back to Ceres. Okay, Ceres is at the world point, 15 Leo. She's lovely, nicely snuggled between asteroid Lilith, who is kind of like the original Lilith, the talk to the hand Lilith. A symbol looks like a hand, of saying, no, we need the goddess energy coming up. We need the divine feminine energy. We need the energy of balance to go back to that Libra card. We've got to bring this in. We've got to start taking that more balanced yin approach to how we live with each other and with the earth. And then on the other side of Ceres, we have Venus, who is really our higher selves. And Venus is just about to disappear from sight behind the sun, heading towards her superior conjunction. She actually will disappear on September the 14th. But just 2 days before this new moon, on August the 25th, the moon will conjunct Venus for what's called her last gate. And this is quite a transformational period as well, because Venus is then moving towards her first Libra star point. The same place it was at on October the 22nd, 1771, will take place on October the 22nd, 2022. And it's the first Libra star point. Back to the card again. since since the late 18th century. So we've got big shifts in energy coming, and it's all pointing towards this card, Libra, balance, justice, really diplomacy, harmony, all that kind of thing. And of course, Venus rules where Uranus is now, and where we are being woken up to, and the Taurus North Node, which is our values, sustainability, all that kind of thing. We are really being woken up to what we need to sustain our life on this planet. The planet will be fine. The planet will recover, but will we? But I actually think we will. Ceres, I can't give you my whole presentation in this, but Ceres is definitely associated with what we are doing to the Earth. In my opinion, Ceres could probably be kind of a missing person or planet. I'm going to do a big presentation on that, and I'll invite you all to come and join me. A free sorry, not free. I'm going to charge a little bit for it because it's going to be a masterclass kind of webinar, but I'll only charge a small amount. But Ceres, I think, is one of the most important planets, and here she is on this new moon, relating back to that 2 years ago, that tree of life full moon, and she is in a lovely trine aspect with Chiron. Chiron is the shaman, the healer, the medicine man. Chiron in Aries is saying what action we can take to be the change that we want to see in the world, what part we are playing in this healing. Chiron is also healing kind of this divine masculine energy, and again, nothing to do with men, nothing to do with actual gender or sex. The divine masculine energy, though, that we've been kind of living under, of control and dominion. And we rape the earth, we control everything, we have this hierarchical leadership, we have this energy of domination, and we are being asked to heal that so that we can all live more harmoniously and support each other. And the astrology is really pointing us to that energy. Now, I do want to say that we've got an awful lot around 15 degrees. Ceres is square the nodes on this. The nodes are at 16 degrees and 8 minutes of Scorpio and Taurus. And so on this world point, Ceres is squaring the nodes, which is always a turning point. I think we are going to see more climate change action. And actually, I was listening to a wonderful podcast called Time, David Sirota, and here he was interviewing a journalist who writes on climate change all the time. And he was saying there's becoming more and more of a consensus among scientists that we actually can halt this climate change. There is hope. So, but we have to take action, which is very Martian, of course. But, if we do take the action that we are starting to wake up to needing, then we can halt it and then gradually reverse it. We're going to be living at these heightened temperatures for quite some years, but even if we stop it getting worse, you get the idea. Ceres squaring the nodes, for my mind, on this new moon is a major turning point in that. Uranus conjunct the North Node, waking us up even more to what we need to do and bringing the radical change that is needed. All right. And Hygeia on the South Node is very much about holistic health. And it's generally agreed, I was reading some articles about this the other day, that a lot of the causes of ill health and so-called disorders these days are a lot to do with climate change. We've got a lot of immune disorders, we've got the pandemics coming back, we've got a big rise in autism and ADHD and so on and so forth. Apparently, there's a lot of scientific evidence, and I'm not a scientist, but I'm just reading these articles, that they're on the rise because of climate change, because our food supply is really bad and things like that. And Ceres squaring the nodes on, well, right after this new moon, probably just a couple of hours or maybe the next day, but really squaring the nodes on this new moon. Ceres is very much to do with our food supply and our farming and how we farm and how we work with the earth and the natural cycles of it. So I do see this as a really hopeful new beginning for bringing stability. Even if we stabilize, climate change for now, even if we start to stabilize it, I think with things like this bill coming through, with the first anything to do with climate change, is really hopeful that more is going to come through, and we're going to start doing more at a local level and an individual level, more community farming, sustainable farming, coming back to all of these things, living more in tune. People learning to, I don't know, fish. You get the idea. Because Ceres was discovered in the Industrial Revolution, and she was kind of hiding in plain sight till the climate crisis really came about. And when Eris was discovered in 2005, that led to Ceres being reclassified from asteroid to dwarf planet. And since that point, we've really become aware of climate change. Okay, it's the disruption has been undeniable. And in my opinion, Ceres being kind of the great mother who stopped the harvest when her daughter Persephone went to the underworld with Hades, whether she was kidnapped or ran away. Ceres has been showing us what we're doing wrong. So that's a little bit of what I would talk about with Ceres. But anyway, so yeah, other things at 15 degrees. Ceres is at 15 degrees. She squared the nodes, as I said. We also have Black Moon Lilith, who was the original female. I've actually started using the mean calculation of Lilith again. I was finding that the true calculation was not really speaking to me. But anyway, Black Moon Lilith is at 14 Cancer, so she's kind of in a semi-sextile, so that's more divine feminine energy coming in. We've also got Nessus, which is another of these centaurs at 15 degrees Pisces. And Nessus is the buck stops here, and that's in a quincunx aspect by just 3 minutes to Ceres on this new moon, saying make adjustments. It's time. The buck stops here. We have to bring these changes. We have to bring things back into balance and stability in kind of all ways. I'm not just talking about legal stability, and I'm not just thinking about, legal rights and wrongs, even though I've mentioned that, and it will apply to that. I'm thinking of stability of how we work with the earth, so we're not destroying our soil, how we support countries that are and areas of the world that are in extreme drought, so that we can bring more stability back in. In my own state of Utah, there's a little bit of furore at the moment. We are low on water, we are in drought, and yet we have cash crops of alfalfa, which are really water heavy, that are getting shipped to Saudi Arabia. When are we going to stop doing this kind of thing, all right, and work with crops that grow in the environment that we live in, and stop by eating avocados when in places where they're not grown, and so on and so forth. Calling everybody out on that one, right? So it's a big new moon. It's going to feel quite discordant with the square to Mars and the aspect to Pholus, I think. But I also think it's going to give us things to really get our hands into, our meats in, really get practical and say, let's find these practical solutions to whatever is coming up. And let's move to the symbols. So I'm going to actually read the Chandra symbol first and then the Sabian symbol. The Chandra symbol is a skull on a pole at the entrance to a dark wood. The mind of death always knows ahead of time each and every danger, problem, and dilemma. The Cassandra complex warning self and world of what will go wrong. Now that's kind of like very Virgo, like worrying, seeing what can go wrong. Okay. So cautioning, tempering, and suppressing, you can afford no mistakes. The mind is set upon doing it just right from start to finish. When there are hitches and snags, you hit the roof with qualms and doubts, the self against it, the mind standing over the spontaneous one and saying, no, you can't go that way. Forebodings are a self-fulfilling prophecy. The self proves itself right and wrong, right about nothing working and wrong to be in that position. This is a mindset to be eroded and worn out, supplanted by fresh inquiry with no agenda, no worry, and just the truth that there is death in everything and life to follow if you let go into it completely. So, like, I often find that the Chandra symbols are cautionary, and this one I would say is very cautionary because with Virgo can go to dark places, worry, monkey mind, what can go wrong, what's wrong, all that kind of energy, and Mars can cut right into that as well in Gemini. We're being asked on this new moon to work on our mindset, to supplant that mindset with fresh inquiry. Mercury in Libra, we've got the opportunity to do it with no agenda and no worry, and just knowing that there are cycles of life and life will follow if we let go into it and take practical action to bring change. Now, the Sabian symbol is just beautiful, though. So I do find this new moon very hopeful, even though I think it's not going to be easy. A man becoming aware of nature spirits and normally unseen spiritual agencies. The keynote is the opening of new levels of consciousness. So we see the individual seeking to bring out of everyday contacts a consciousness of significant form and meaning. As the sequence ends, a further stage of realization is shown in its initial and relatively primitive character. The consciousness is gradually reaching beyond physical characteristics and becoming aware of energy processes, i.e., of the dynamism of forces which externalize themselves as life forms. So the mind in its objectivizing and analytical character always tends to give name and form to that which it contacts as energy process. It images forth energy or feeling, relating it to more or less familiar sense experience. We call this imagination. Now, kind of summed up really with this is that we are going to get new spiritual awarenesses, and we are kind of give this new heightened consciousness new form and make sense of it, which is very Virgo, and really kind of relate it to our own sense experience and see how we can work with this to move forward. So in a nutshell, really, I kind of think we are going to get to work. We are going to get to work creating a new life and a new way forward. And it's quite a wonderful new moon in that respect. This new moon does lead into some massive shifts that we've got coming. We've got the first Libra star point coming up on October the 22nd. After this new moon, some of the planets are going to begin to start stationing direct, mostly in October. We do have a Mercury retrograde coming up in September after this new moon to really look at this Libra card of bringing this balance and justice and things back into harmony and and diplomacy and all that kind of stuff. But really, it's, if I could sum up this new moon, it's get to work with whatever the lid has come off. Make practical solutions, build practical new ways of doing things so that we can, Ceres Chiron, start to heal what we've been doing to this world that we live in and inhabit, and to each other. So big new moon, and I will see you all for the Pisces full moon, and I'll create this masterclass on Ceres. But I actually have 2 trips. I've got one trip during this new moon, and I've got another trip over Labor Day in the US, kind of the second week in September. So it'll be after that. So for now, much love. I'll see you next time, and don't forget to subscribe.